So if you're watching this video right now, you are most likely preparing for your USCIS interview that's coming up in a few weeks. You are married to a US citizen or a green card holder. You applied for your green card, and now you got a notice from the USCIS that it's time to have your interview, and you're freaking out. You're like, what are they gonna ask me? What am I gonna say? What's gonna happen? And you're worried, especially if this is your second interview, whether you're going to get approved or denied. So if this is your first time coming to my channel or watching any of my videos, welcome. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be aware when I post videos about immigration, talking about the recent updates, or just answering your immigration questions. All right. So in this video, I'm talking about the second type of interview, the Stokes interview, which is the scariest interview that many people don't want to have. They hope that they can just get the first interview and get approved that day, because yes, you can get your decision the same day that you are having your interview. That was actually one of the questions I got in the comments of my previous video. If you haven't checked that out yet, do so after watching this video. That's just discussing a regular interview. This video is discussing a Stokes interview in 2020. All right, so yes, you can get your decision that day if you just have one interview, but if you end up requiring a second interview, that's maybe because the agent found a problem with your case. Maybe it just wasn't sufficient and they just could not make a decision and need more investigation about your case. So that's why they schedule a second interview. So if you're watching and you've had a second interview, today you're going to learn, I'm going to talk about at least 5 questions that you can expect to hear or you can expect to answer during this interview, and how you can answer them. The key in answering any question during a USCIS interview is to be honest, because obviously USCIS already knows everything about you. I mean, you came in through the airport, so you put in all your information, you had your biometrics. They already know most things about you. They just give you the opportunity to answer at that time to really confirm what they already know. So if you're truthful, you get your approval, you sign the I-45 right there and then, and that's it. But if there's an issue maybe with your bona fide marriage, which is usually the reason for the second interview, like I said in the beginning, it's called a fraud interview or marriage fraud interview as well. So that's the whole purpose for that interview. If you have not been able to show the agent during your first interview that this marriage was real and I didn't just get married just for immigration purposes, and then you get your second interview. So what kinds of questions are we going to see during a second interview? In the first interview, there were questions about, obviously, about the couple. They're going to ask you, how did you meet? They want to know about your spouse's employment and, what's going on with that. And they want to know about your living situation, if you live together, and just basic things like that. But during a marriage fraud interview, is going to be more detailed, more invasive questions, because now, obviously, the USCIS agent was not buying your first response. He didn't believe when you said that you met your husband, I don't know, on the streets or something. It wasn't detailed enough. So keep in mind, if you're watching this and you haven't had your first interview yet, keep in mind to be detailed in your answers. If they ask you how you met, go into detail about how you met, because the point of that question is to know that you met this person not in an arranged way, but just in a natural way, how people usually meet. So there's no need to embellish the story or make it too complicated. Just be honest and truthful and detailed about how you met. All right, so now in a Stokes interview, if they asked you how you met the first time during your regular interview, now it's probably going to be more like, where was your first date? Okay, this is a more focused question about how you met your spouse. It's not just a general answer. So if you in a bona fide relationship, you most likely know when you had your first date. So questions like that will come up for Stokes interview, you would see questions like, who cleans the house? In different households, there are different people, the wife and the husband, they have different chores or different things that they do, different responsibilities. So during a Stokes interview, they'll most likely ask you who cleans the house, because if you live together and it's a bona fide marriage, you will know who cleans the house. Even if it's not a designated person, but at least you say, oh, well, maybe my husband cleans it mostly, or, you know, my wife cleans it mostly. It'll just be something that you would know. You would see questions like, who is your cable and internet provider? I mean, that's kind of like an easy one that everyone should know. I mean, the question usually when you go into someone's house is like, what's your Wi-Fi? So everybody is using Wi-Fi. Everybody knows about Wi-Fi. So if you're really in a bona fide marriage, you would know what the cable or Wi-Fi provider is. So think about knowing these things in your marriage. Let's say even if it's a bona fide marriage and you haven't even been called for the second interview, or you're about to go for your first interview, still know these things about your family, about your life, because you need to be involved. You can't just be a passive member of a relationship and hope to get a marriage-based green card. You need to be involved in the affairs of your household. Okay, we'll see questions like, what time did you sleep last night? That's a really common question. Also with who slept, or what side of the bed did you sleep on last night? Something like that. Because the focus is a real couple typically would have their own side of the bed just for, you know, your nighttime stuff. Like, where do you keep your phone, or where's your nightstand, or whatever. Like, you know your side of the bed. So if they ask you these questions and you're able to provide the same answers, then they'll know that your marriage is bona fide. So there was something I didn't say in the beginning when I started explaining about the Stokes interview. It's that not only would you be getting more invasive questions, you would have to answer these questions separately. So that's the key. The husband and the wife would be separated, and then they would ask them the same questions like, when did you sleep last night, or something like that. If the wife is like at 9 and the husband's like at 11, it's like, oh, that's really different. That's a red flag. But if you say something like, I don't know, around 8:30-ish, I don't know, 9-ish, and then the husband says something similar, it may not be exact, because when you're telling the truth, you may not even remember every single detail. But when it's, you know, similar or close, usually the agent who's asking the question can tell, and then you could get approved in that instance, like when you're after your Stokes interview. But if for whatever reason you're not able to answer the questions properly, and you're not able to still prove that your marriage is bona fide, and you get a denial, you still have the opportunity to reopen that file. So that's not the end of the line, but your interview performance like really matters in the final decision of your case. That's like just the last phase after they've looked at all your paperwork, and now they're looking at you, and it's like, what do I do? So if you're answering properly, truthfully, you're comfortable, you're following all the rules and everything that's been set forth for you, and you still get a denial, you can file a motion to reopen that green card application, because what's the reason? Like, why did you get denied? So if there's no solid reason, or maybe it was because there was some inconsistencies during your interview because you were nervous or things like that, that you have the opportunity to explain it at that time. So yeah, that's pretty much the Stokes interview process. You get separated, you get asked all these invasive questions, and then you either get a denial, approval, or just next steps after the interview. So in this last part of this video, I'm going to answer some questions that I received from my last video in the comments, emails, just everywhere. I just put some of them together. Hopefully I got to your question. If I didn't, after watching this video, please leave a comment again or email me again. Just make sure that your question gets answered. All right, so one of the questions I got a couple of times actually was about a spouse not living together with, well, let me say it this way, the U.S. citizen spouse and the immigrant, they don't live together because of religious reasons. In this situation, the immigrant has strong beliefs that you cannot live with a man until you're properly married. So in this scenario, properly married means being married like traditionally. Although the couple has a marriage certificate, the person's beliefs still prevents them from actually living with the spouse until there's an official traditional marriage. So in this scenario, the person is wondering, what do I do? Am I gonna get denied? Like if I don't live with my spouse? And short answer is no. You're not going to get denied just because you don't live with your spouse. Many couples don't live together for different reasons, either school, work, whatever. Okay, so not living together by itself is not enough to make your marriage a fraud marriage or just not good enough to actually get approved for a green card. That's just one factor that can be explained in your cover letters. You explain the reason why you don't have a lease together instead of trying to lie and make up like a lease or say, oh, we live together even when you don't. It's better to just be honest about why you don't live together. Either maybe not enough money, or I live with my parents, I can't take care of my spouse right now in a house or something, I'm disabled, or just different, whatever the reason is why you don't live together. Just be prepared to answer about that. Okay, so you won't get denied because you don't live together with your spouse. Just have to make sure it's a good reason and that you can support it with evidence when you're asked during the interview or even when you're submitting your application. Okay? And all right, another question that I got is, how long does the interview take? The interview process itself that day takes about 45 minutes to an hour. I think it really depends on the agent and the couple and the kind of rapport that they have, whether they have to ask them several questions or whether it's just a flow and you're just there and you just chit chat for a little bit and then you get approved. It really just depends. So every situation is different, but I'll say expect at least 45 minutes, because before they even get to the questions, you're gonna go through the whole swearing in and all of that, bringing out your original documents and all of that before it gets to questions. So just be prepared to be there for, let's just say 2 hours from the time you come in, wait in line, especially now in COVID, go through all the inspection stuff with your mask and all of that. Yeah, so 2 hours for the entire process of your immigration interview. Another question was, okay, what if I lost my original documents? What if I don't have my original passport and my interview's coming up? What do I do? This is definitely concerning because you do need your original documents when you go for your interview. I said in my previous video, if you provided copies of your marriage certificates during your interview, you would most likely need to show the original marriage certificate, something like that. So if you showed a copy of your passport during the interview, you'll be asked, can I see your passport? And you'll provide the copy. So if for whatever reason your passport is lost or stolen, you just don't have it and your interview is coming up, what I would say you can do in this scenario, if it's a short amount of time, you can write an affidavit about your passport, having your passport and having the passport stolen, and then make an application to your consulate for your country to get a new passport, and pretty much include the proof of that application in your entire package. Because if you don't have the original, there's just nothing you can do. It's been stolen, it's lost. You're not gonna get disqualified for that. You just have to answer and provide proof of either how it got lost or stolen. If it was a flood, like imagine if you lived in a place where there was like some type of hurricane or something and you lost all your documents, you would just prove that and provide a supplementary or supplemental type of document instead of having the original. Hope that answers the question. If you have more questions about this, if you've lost your original document, just reach out to me by email. My information is on the screen as usual, and I can try to do some research and help you figure out what you can do, all right? Okay, another question I have is, do I pick the location? That was an interesting question because I can see how it'll come up, since some USCIS locations are all over the place, so you never really know where you would have your interview. But the answer for this is no, you do not pick your interview location. When you get the letter after you submitted everything and you get your interview notice, there's going to be instructions about where it's going to be, the time, and what you need to do to get in. So you don't get to pick the location, unfortunately, but the location is just selected for you based on where you live. So even though there are locations all over the place, you have your own particular field office that services cases from your area. So that's most likely where your interview would be. Just read that notice carefully and you'll be able to understand the process and what you need to do. And if you need help with understanding your notice or preparing for your interview, obviously reach out to me after watching my video, all right? What else do I have here for questions? I think that was it. I think the final question I received was, do I need an attorney for my interview? Do I need an attorney? The answer is no, you don't. The presence of an attorney obviously helps with just keeping you composed, just the support, and helps the agent obviously ask you the right questions and just be more composed during the process. But obviously the attorney is not going to answer any questions for you. The attorney doesn't really make the decision on whether you get approved or denied, but the presence of an attorney can help, but you do not have to have an attorney for your interview, okay? I provide interview preparation services. I also attend interviews. If you need someone to attend your interview and you don't have an attorney of record, definitely reach out to me and I can help you with that. But you do not need to have an attorney. Just generally, just go with your documents, follow the instructions on the letter, be confident, dress properly, arrive early, and you would have a successful experience with your interview. So I think that's all for this video, this segment about the Stokes marriage fraud interview. If you have been scheduled for a fraud interview, or if you're concerned that you may be called for a fraud interview, maybe you had your first interview and you haven't heard anything back, it's been months, reach out to me. Let's talk about that and see what's going on there. And we can also work on preparing for the Stokes interview. Maybe you need some questions. I have a question bank I'll be happy to share with you. So just reach out to me if you need access to those questions about interview questions, just how to be, the whole process, just a guide on preparing for a successful green card interview. All right, I'm gonna end here. And again, thank you for watching my video. If you haven't already subscribed, hit that button, the notification bell as well, and I will see you in my next video. Have a great day and goodbye.